Hello, welcome to the UGC lecture series on educational psychology. And today we'll be discussing a very important and very interesting subject. And this is assessment of personality. I have earlier talked about personality, its concept and the determinants. And today we shall see whether the personality, in whatever way it has been defined, can be measured, can be assessed, and can be known through certain tests. Of course, it is from the very beginning of psychological thinking or even measurement technology that people were interested to know whether a person's personality can be made known to others through some strategies or techniques. And that's why that people did work very hard from the very beginning. We have some classification of such assessments made, like, for instance, they would say there is a subjective way of understanding or assessing personality. There is an objective or psychometric way of understanding personality, or there is a projective way also. So when I'm talking or classifying or labeling these different sets of understandings of our assessment of personality, actually there are some beliefs, some assumptions connected with these different classes. Now, when we talk of how do we measure personality or assess it under subjective category, the assumption is that personality more or less cannot be perhaps revealed because personality is uniquely ordained, it is uniquely structured, it is uniquely made. I did talk about uniqueness of personality in my earlier lecture, that a person is uniquely made. And when we say he is uniquely made, means that there are some characteristic features of an individual which set him apart from other individuals. So sometimes it is very difficult to understand these characteristic features of one single individual. That's why the assumption was that if we could develop a technique which can subjectively reach a person's personality, perhaps we could make an assessment. And in reality, subjective technique of assessment was a start in personality measurement. What the different types of tools used or instruments used was simply, even today when we sit or we ask people to have some idea about a person's personality, we would say, why don't you interview him? So interviewing was taken as a technique under subjective approach. But then if you interview a person, is it possible that you could, on the basis of interview alone, make a very objective, realistic judgment about the person's personality? No. Why? Because interview has its own limitations. The most important limitation is the bias of the interviewer himself. I do not know, you do not know, what is it that appeals a person who is interviewing another person from the interviewee's personality, and therefore he makes a judgment. Likewise, they would talk of autobiographies. Even if you go on studying autobiographies of people wherein they reveal themselves or their basic personalities, maybe that you get some idea about the personality of an individual. Therefore, autobiography could become a technique of assessment. But all of us do not make autobiographies. And that is not perhaps even possible to have autobiographies of each individual. And again, within the autobiography context, the personal prejudices come. You do not know how a person has actually discovered himself and then analyzed himself, put in his own singular perception. Which means that you can have a perception of yours which can be false. So autobiographies do not take you to a realistic measurement of or assessment of personality. There could be sociometric scales which give you some idea about the person's influence, effectivity, while he's working with others, he's sitting with others, he's doing a social kind of work or job. But again here we have very scarce information that could give us some understanding or assessment of personality. Then understanding in terms of objective techniques was taken into hand, and this is, I'm talking about late 1920s, when first personality data sheet was produced or constructed by Woodworth. And this questionnaire, which was constructed by Woodworth, would give you an idea of different psychological traits or features or personal dispositions or characteristics of an individual in terms of asking questions. And the need for this construction of this question was felt when in USA they found that some of the army men are breaking at certain points of their engagements or assignments. So Woodworth was charged with the duty to find out a questionnaire which could give us an idea how far can we go with the army personnel so far as their confidence, so far as their courage, so far as their work is concerned. And that questionnaire was the first objective effort to understand or to assess personality. The second one is rather one which is really even now in vogue and is most reliable one, that is MMPI, that is Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory, MMPI, where you have about more than 490 items, and all these items are in the form of an inventory. Primarily this inventory was made to help clinicians in making some diagnoses of different problems like schizophrenia and other abnormalities, manic depressive psychosis. This kind of technique or inventory is in use in medical sciences, medical colleges and medical institutes even in these days. But at the same time, with normal people also, it has got a lot of relevance. And from the very beginning of this test, when the test was constructed by Hathaway, and we found that yes, this test is measuring even normal persons' personalities in terms of certain characteristics. And the scales used in this test are about 10 in number, in which you see on each scale you will have an abnormal score and a normal score, because abnormality and normality are taken as happening on a continuum, in which you will find low scores coming and then high scores. So if you have high scores on this one scale out of 10, then it would lead to one direction, and low scores would lead naturally to another direction. So normal, abnormal, both could be detected, and very well detected, because of the use or it is what you call administration of this scale. And this is taken as objective. Why? Because the positivists or scientists believe that personality is found in trait structures. It is available in objective traits of persons, and therefore if there is an assessment technique, an assessment tool which would definitely have an some impact in understanding or in assessing these objective traits, it is a possibility. Of course, there could be some cardinal traits which cannot be detected because of these tests. But then overall, in majority cases, we'll find 80% and up that there you can rely upon the test results of MMPI. Then there is another technique, that is MPI's modestly personality inventory. Now it is EPAQ, which is Eisening's personality inventory technique, meaning that modestly's basic inventory was revised in 1963 by Professor Eisening, and he made this kind of arrangement in which we would see that people would be classified into types, and the type would be extraversion, introversion, or neuroticism. This is three classes of people. You could assess a person. While you are assessing a person, the scores would give you an information whether a person can be treated as an extrovert who is completely and totally engaged in the world affairs, is very social in nature, and does work with some objective stand in mind, or he can be an introvert who loves solitary kind of atmosphere, who could be a scientist but is not that social and has his own problems. And then it can be a neurotic who has a type of free floating anxiety nature. Even if he is doing well, even if he is you find him that he is on job, he is working well, he is studying well, he can be anything, but then basically or primarily he is being characterized as neurotic. So this is how on the basis of objective understanding we could use different instruments. One most important instrument which has come to the fields of psychology for assessment of personality is 16-factor questionnaire, that is by Cattell. And this 16-factor questionnaire, that is 16PF normally and popularly we call it. Once this test or inventory is administered upon people, it gives us information, or it gives us a profile of the individual upon whom the test has been administered. So this profile would give you your position on those 16 factors. Like there are factors like intelligence is one of the factor, warmth and coolness is another factor, anxiety and inhibition is another factor. So there are these factors in which you get score information, whether you are scoring low on the factor or scoring high on the factor. If you are on the lower side, that is LSD scoring side, then you use the lower position of is low, so you go to one direction in personality. Your high score takes to another direction. Like for instance, if I take the scale second or factor second, which is on intelligence. So low scores on intelligence would mean that you will be placed lowly on intelligence, and high score on intelligence scale you will be naturally placed on high score or high place in intelligence. Likewise, all other psychological factors have their values in terms of these low scores or high scores. In the world today, these people are making use of such tests, but in management sciences also, we find that even some tests which are taken or they are standardized objectively are being made use of for not only identifying leaders, for identifying cohorts and very close colleagues or group members on the basis of similarity of their attitude, similarity of their mind, similarity of their intentions and motivation or their desires or interests. So on the basis of personality assessment conducted through objective tests, it is a possibility that a person can be ranked, or he can be classed, or he can be put on job according to the type of traits or the type of dispositions he has. So this is about what we call objective tests. Now by now, these objective tests can be taken as psychometric tests, because fundamentally, primarily, it is the psychological understanding of such tests, their construction, then their application, then their scoring, then their results, then communication. The whole thing is done under psychological treatment. That's why we say it's a psychological or psychometric understanding of assessment. So psychometry is used, statistics is used, numericals are used to give you information on different types of traits or characteristics of personality through the dimensions which are put or are made or administered through the objective techniques of assessment. Now the third one, and the very most important one, is projective technique. And for projective technique is such a popular thing that it has actually gone out of the fields of psychology. Even in literature and in social kind of work and management work, they take or make use of projective techniques. The basic thing to a projective technique of the assessment of personality is that objective tests sometimes do not help us to get the real kind of understanding of personality or real peep into the personality structure, and subjective techniques also fail to give us some real picture. But there can be one more technique, and that technique is that the person may reveal himself or herself in such a way, unconsciously of course, so that that will become her or his a stylish, a characteristic feature. So under projective techniques, what they do is they would either have a unstructured situation or give you a structured one and find out your responses. The most important technique that is by now known and made use of even in clinical centers and medical sciences is Rorschach Inkblot test. A simple thing. You can have a blot of ink put on a paper, white paper, whatever, or any paper you find, and then put it, make it double. You find that some kind of picture you will be having out of that blot. Now this is the work which Hermann did, whose projective technique we are using, and in that technique these ink blots are not actually structured, they are not well thought, but they are there, they are drops of ink, and the person upon whom the test is being used or administered, he is asked a number of questions. The whole thing is put before him, and then you will usually or generally or casually ask him, what are you looking at? And once he gives his responses to that ink blot, so you see whether he is going by peripheral sides of that ink blot, he is looking into the, focusing into the center of it. Does he see movement in it? Does he see static thing in it? Does he find color in it? Whatever he finds, there is an well knit scoring arrangement for movement, for color, for peripheral things, or for the taking structure as a whole. So when you take a structure as a whole, you have a kind of personality, and when you just look into parts of it, you have a kind of personality. When you see movement, you have a kind of a personality, and when you see static condition of the blot, you have a personality. The understanding is that while responding to this unstructured situation, you are actually revealing yourself. I give you an example, and this is about, say, if you see a patch of cloud in the skies, and you ask someone, you look at that patch, looking at the patch, what do you see? He would say, sir, I am just looking at a patch of clouds. Now, can you see anything here, sir? He says, yes, I do see. So what do you see? So this is a sort of a kashti, a naya, and maybe some of my friends are coming through, the voyaging through to myself from very distant place like United States of America, and I consider that this ship is actually very important for me. Actually, it is not a ship, it is a cloud patch. Once he gives meaning to cloud shape, is how he is responding, and once he is responding with some interest, with some need in mind, that once with some point in mind, he wants satiation in terms of meeting his friend or a relative who is living quite distant. So how do you look at things around which are not structured for you, and how do you respond, and that response put in your own perceptual terms? What psychologists would do, they would score these things, and then they will give you an idea about what type of personality you are. And then of course this is a very wonderful situation, but then what would happen if the situation is structured? Then we have thematic apperception test. This was Rorschach Inkblot test. Now we have another one, that is Murray's construction, his made, that is called thematic apperception test. Thematic apperception test, these cards are 30 in number, and you will find on cards some pictures are there, and the pictures have been structured. Now once these pictures are given to people upon whom it is being administered, they see a picture and they respond to the picture. They are asked usually some questions, like 4 questions. What do you see? And they give answer to this question. I am saying 2 persons there. If it is 2 persons, if it is a mother and a daughter, whatever. They are not named, but the person gives a name. Sir, this is mother. Sir, this is daughter. Then they would ask another question, what are these persons doing? Then he has to answer. He may say, sir, this is daughter is not ready to go to the school. She is just making a fight, I'm not going. And what is the mother saying? She said, no, you have to go to school. Second, third. Then what will happen? She will go to school. Why would she go to school, finally? Because her mother will otherwise not have her at home. Conclusion. So you have these questions, and then you find the nature of answers to these questions. And you find how the person looks. The belief is that the person who is taking this test is trying to picturize, understand, disseminate the information about the picture in his own ways, according to his own needs. So this is actually revealing need structure. And once the need structure is being revealed by a particular test, means that those needs can become a kind of priority for a particular personality. And needs definitely would qualify your behavior as a personality behavior. Therefore, we talk of projective. One more projective technique, that is Rosenwig's picture frustration test, was constructed of 24 cartoons, small cartoon pictures, and there 2 people are usually put. One is frustrating another one. Then she is asked, upon whom the test is being administered, he is asked what will be his response, means who has been frustrated. Like I give you one instance. On one picture there are 2 people. One is a driver in a car, the other one is in a white dress, a person in a white dress who is going for work. Now while he was driving his car, there was a lot of rain is around, and then he sprinkled a lot of drops of mud on the person who was in whites. He stopped him and then showing what has happened. Now this is all. Then we ask the person upon whom the test is being administered, what would be his response? Response of the person who has been frustrated. Now quality of this response to 24 such situations would give us an idea about what type of person this individual is. Is a person self-punitive type of, self-defensive type of person, or he is the one who is extra punitive, who is actually blaming others for whatever is being conducted, or impunitive, or what? Means that these pictures and answers to these pictures give you some kind of idea about the personality of person. Now before concluding this discussion, I would make a small summary of what I have done by now. Now I did start with assessment of personality, and with the question that whether the personality can really be assessed or measured. Why? Because personality is uniquely formed. Then I said that yes, it is uniquely formed, and for uniqueness of the personality, for it is composition which is completely subjective, there can be a strategy called subjective technique of assessment, in which we talked about interviews, we did talk about autobiography, we did have some idea about people's ratings of different people. So these are all subjective measures. But then there can be a way also which is known as objective or psychometric way, and that is really assigning scores to the traits dispositions, whatever in terms of personality. And in objective assessment, we did talk of a number of techniques, like for instance Woodworth's data sheet, personal data sheet. Then we did talk about MMPI. We did talk of MPI, or Professor Eisenach's personality inventory, and 16PF. So that is objective kind of thing. Then we came finally to one popular usage of assessment technique, which is projective one. And in projective technique, we did talk of structured and unstructured. So far as unstructured situational tests are concerned, their most popular, most fundamental and most reliable technique is that of Rorschach Inkblot with 10 cards, in which subjects are revealing their mind while responding to the cards. And then we did talk of a structured situation, one structured situation, which is thematic apperception test, where themes are built up for 30 cards, so that characteristic features of one single person upon whom the test is being administered can be understood. And also I did make a very small mention of what we call Rosenwig's picture frustration test. Again, because personality can be revealed even when you are frustrated, what type of tolerance mechanism you have got, how far can you go in particular situations where you are frustrated. So that is frustration tolerance measurement technique, which also gives idea of the personality. And that is all for assessment of personality. Thank you.